You're listening to Behind the Bulldogs on News Radio WBRN.
Off the left side to the end zone. Touchdown Bulldogs.
If I'm even having like a bad day on the course or something, I just look down at it and just feel like thankful that I'm able to be out there.
Making sure that we're like where our feet are and we're not thinking about outside distractions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into the return of the Behind the Bulldogs Summer Series with a little collaboration thrown into. Brandon Worth, Tatum Outlaw with you as always. Tatum, what's going on?
I'm really excited.
You are very excited.
For the summer series. It's different, but I'm really excited just to do something a little bit different and that we can keep filming every week.
It's a summer series, debut for you. This is the first time. Very excited.
We'll see how it goes.
You know who it's not a debut for? Our third guest, off the Iceman himself in Ferris State Athletics, Brody Keiser returns. Brody, what is going on?
Oh, it's great to be back. It feels like it's been too long since I've had a mic, so this is exciting stuff.
Very exciting stuff. I mean, we got a lot to recap, and we're taking this summer, for those that missed last summer, we're taking the collaboration series of Off the Ice and Behind the Bulldogs, and we're throwing it together over the airwaves and all for our Spotify fans, because Ferris State Bulldog fans need stuff over the summer, darn it. We want to talk sports all the time, so we're going to do it for you. We're going to recap all sport by sport, just like we did last year. We'll dive into one specific sport every episode. We'll get you everything, the numbers, the season rankings, right? Historical things, awards. And at the end of the show, as tradition, we will get you our breakout picks for next year, players you're going to want to have circled for next year on the roster sheet. So it's going to be very exciting. But the number one thing here we'll start with is this team, right? Obviously, for those that saw the title of this episode, for those listening live over the radio, we're talking softball first, the most recent, and obviously one to certainly talk about for the success they had this year. I mean, 28 wins, one of the highest in many years, first NCAA Midwest Regional Tournament, National Championship Tournament appearance since 2013. Very exciting season for Coach Schumann and the Bulldogs. I mean, 28-21, 16-12, I believe, in conference play this year. Just a really good season overall, Brody. And as we follow these teams, fielding-wise, one of the best teams in the entire country, top 10 statistically. Pitching-wise, we saw, obviously, CC Bell heat up at the end of the year. We had some great pitching staff throughout the year. Just need some more arms, I think, really. But at the end of the day, I think this team really showed if they can get the bats consistently next year, we're talking a real dangerous team.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that I think should have extremely high expectations for next year. They had a remarkable season this year. And it's impressive because baseball, softball are sports that it takes longer than 2 years to rebuild a program. It should. It usually does. And Coach Schumann did it in exactly that amount of time. To think that 3 years ago, this team had no thoughts of an NCAA tournament appearance or competing at the highest level in the GLIAC, and then to where they are right now, it's so impressive. And I think that was the thing that was the most fun throughout the year, was to watch this team continue to grow and get better and just show that elite upside where, like you were saying, Brandon, if they get the bats consistent next year, look out. I mean, this could be one of the best teams in the region.
It really can be. And Tatum, we've talked to a couple of the players on the pod earlier on this year. And the number one thing that I certainly heard, and I think one thing that's really been kind of missing over the last couple of years was, that cultural, that buy-in from that program. And obviously talking to players, Emily Killian, Jaden Joseph, Brooklyn Verbeek, who's been a leader for this program for many years, Ellen McDonald, obviously Riley Kish, Paige Ancliffe also joining us. I mean, we've heard them talk especially about the, the cultural upbringing, the positivity and the belief in the system. And this year, we really saw that really come to fruition.
Yeah, well, what Brody said, I was going to say the same thing. It's cool to see the leaps that the program has made just within 2 years because of Coach Schumann. And it's nice to see the players are so bought into everything that he's doing. They trust him. They're bought into the culture. And culture really does make a big difference when you're, gelling as one as the team. And you can really see it this year. So I'm just excited to see how they do next season.
It's going to be very exciting indeed. And kind of looking at the schedule in review, all the results, obviously starting in a very warm place, one that I would argue I'd rather be right now as we're recording this podcast in Hawaii. We really saw earlier on in the year, like playing a team like Hillsdale and Lewis, two teams that made the regional tournament, hindsight at the end of the year, but playing well against Hawaii, Hilo, as well as Humboldt State, Nebraska, Kearney, those teams. They played Tiffin, right? Tiffin, they won against Tiffin. Tiffin, the number 2 team in the region at the end of the year. And so they showed that constantly. It was just the consistency that this team lacked at the end of the day, right? Especially starting off with all those wins, really cleaning house in Florida. I mean, that was an incredible tournament there in Melbourne. But then, losing at Wayne State, losing at Davenport, right? Those teams near the bottom of the conference. But then, you get the sweep against Grand Valley, first time in over 10 years that's happened. Then you battle against Saginaw Valley. Then you get a big time swing of momentum with all the games in a row against Parkside and Roosevelt. And I think that really kind of sparked the real belief. We started to see them in the top 10 Midwest region rankings. Like, hey, this is a possibility now. And obviously had a little bit of slip-ups there against Wayne State at the end of the year. But I think this team really overall proved that they can play with those top dogs. And we've kind of known that. The consistency, right, from day one was really sporadic. We'd beat a top 10 team and then lose 3 in a row. But this year especially, we've proven that. And we've started to get some sweeps together. But getting those to 4-6 games in a row, winning 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10 is really where you can make a difference. And I think especially with this tough a schedule, this team did show that, but there's going to be even more room for improvement going into next year and just being consistently. And I think especially we talked about the bats, that will be the number one priority for this team to improve next year.
I mean, it has to be. We've saw in stretches throughout this season what can happen when the offense comes alive, and it's beating the top teams. We had a 7-3 victory over Saginaw. We had 14-6 win over Davenport. Davenport struggled at points this season, but 14 runs. I mean, that is it. You don't just have that happen fluky.
No,
you have to be a good hitting team to have that happen. And unfortunately for us, the bats just went cold at the end of the year, and that happens in softball. It's a streaky sport just by nature. You go into the GLIAC tournament in the semifinal against Parkside, and you lose. You score 0 runs, then you score 0 runs against Saginaw in the NCAA tournament, and then 1 run against Findlay. So you're talking 1 run in the final 3 games of the year, 2 runs in the final 4. Right? That just can't happen. It's a bad time. It's unfortunate, but the good teams don't allow that to happen in postseason play. So that's just what needs to happen next year. I think Coach Schumann is very well aware of that. Brandon, when we were talking to him after a couple of those games, he was just a little frustrated maybe with the approach, some things at the plate. But again, it's just the nature of the sport. And I think as this team continues to improve and continues to grow, they will become naturally more consistent with their approach at the plate.
It certainly is. And we obviously talking to Coach Schumann, it was the elephant in the room, right? The bats aren't hitting the softball. We're not getting on base. And that was the biggest thing. And obviously we'll talk a little bit about that more on, but Tatum, especially for you as the athlete perspective, right? Very similar softball start to what you guys had at volleyball. A lot of games, tournament play on the road to start the year. I mean, you guys didn't play a full month until you were back home, right? Softball kind of went through the same thing, playing early on and late in February and then in March, where they didn't play their first home game, I believe, until March 28th.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's a really hard thing to do. And especially they pulled wins together in that stretch. And I think that has to be, especially from your guys' perspective, a catalyst for the rest of the year.
Exactly. And I think what's important to look at with softball is they're rarely losing like 2 games in a row to the same team. Like it's either, they're sweeping or they're getting a split, but like they're rarely ever losing twice to the same team in a row. And I think that shows a lot of their potential. So if they can just find their consistency, especially when they're away from home, because it is difficult, then I think they'll be great next year.
They should be indeed. And kind of looking at some of those things, right, in depth, I think the biggest thing to note for this team, looking at some of the games this year, they were great at home. 10-5 on our home turf. And that's a great thing to have, right? Home field advantage, taking advantage of it. Neutral site also very impressive for how many good teams they played. We talked already about Hillsdale, Lewis, right? Hawaii Hilo. They played a lot of teams earlier on, especially, and they would have added even more, right, with McKendree and some of those other schools there in Indiana, which that was the Blue Ridge battle that got canceled due to rain, which we didn't even talk about. The amount of cancellations that Mother Nature threw our way for rain. Thanks a lot. But I think especially considering a lot of those neutral site games, and obviously we mentioned the success in Florida, obviously the number one priority is how can you take that momentum, take that substance, that confidence you feel at home, and take it on the road. They were 8-9 away in an official away game, rather, not a neutral site, not a home game, right? At an opponent's home field, 8-9 overall. That might be something they want to improve at next year.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think when you're looking at the good teams, right, you try to go 500 on the road and, double your win-loss ratio at home. And that's exactly what we did. 10-5 at home, 8-9 on the road. Okay. How do you become a great team? Well, you have to about double your road record and then more than triple your home record. record. So I think that's the next step for this team. But that 10-5 record, Brandon, remember, at home, that includes getting swept by Wayne State the last 2 home games of the regular season on senior night. I don't think with the way this team was playing, anybody saw that coming.
No.
Okay, Wayne has a very good softball team. They're usually extremely consistent and they play tough. But the Bulldogs were hot at that point. They were coming off a road win against Saginaw. They had swept Davenport. They went on the road to split with Grand Valley the week prior to those 2 games against Wayne, and then they proceeded to lose both of those ones. So you win one of those games, you go 11-4 at home, and that's even a little bit better than the 10-5. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to build on the home field advantage, and then how do we get over that 500 hump on the road, because that's what the great teams are able to do.
Absolutely. And looking, kind of in hindsight, for Coach Schumann, right, in his first season, 2022, 2023, we were 10-9 on the road. You want to guess our home record that year?
Guessing it. That would be tough. How many games did we win total?
4 at home.
Wow.
In 13 games,
Wow.
4-9. So you look at the hindsight, right? That's incredible, right? Neutral has been around the same, right around that 500 mark, and they've actually done a really good job of improving that. They went from, I believe, 9-14 to 11-13, and then last year, obviously, above 500. And then last year, they were 7-5 at home and then 7-9 on the road. So they've done an amazing job improving their play at home in front of the Bulldog fans. That's great. Now, seeing if they can dip back into those early years, that road grittiness, when you saw from that team, that'll be something very interesting, Tatum. And I think that you look at it in hindsight, right, how the fans can propel you forward. I think this team has shown the belief in themselves to the point now where the fans believe it too, and they're supporting at home, which is huge for the team.
And I think it's all just how you look at it, because we played away the first month and a half of our season, and there's obviously people cheering against us, but it's how you label it. We were like, oh, these fans are here for us, even though they're all wearing the opposing colors. So just making each gym or field or wherever you're at your own field, I think that's the mindset that they could use moving forward.
Tatum, when you guys played your first home game this year, because I would assume that was the longest stretch of road games you've ever played in your career. What was that feeling like, just walking in Bulldog Arena for the first time?
Well, we had gone on quite the winning streak away.
That's true. You guys were undefeated, so that helps.
That might help a little bit.
Yeah, and this was only our second season in that gym. So just seeing how many people showed out, because obviously people keep up with us on the road, but we try to just stay with what we're doing. So I don't think any of us really realized how much hype we were getting and how much love we were getting from back home. So seeing how many people were just in our gym cheering us on, it was really nice to be home, but it was almost wow, okay, I didn't realize how many people were paying attention to us.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed for softball too, was even the Wednesday afternoon games, which are usually hard for people to get to just because it's right in the middle of the school day or the work week.
Packed.
They were full. The stands were full. People were there. They were excited about Bulldog softball. There was just an energy around that ballpark, and it was fun. It was really fun.
It really was. And you can see that, right, on the statistics too, right? Obviously, we love breaking down numbers here on the show. 275 our average was this year at home, including a 390 slugging. On the road, 248 and 317. So obviously, you expect a slight dip, right? Obviously, the comfort at home does triumph at the end of the day. The biggest thing especially that I noticed, right, this illuminates how cold the bats were in the last month, right? The last 5 games in the month of May. Brody's already, cringing right now as I'm reading these too.
Yeah.
284 we batted in February, 266 in May, 269 in April, right? So right around that 270 mark we've been at all season. In the month of May in the 5 games, 153.
Yeah.
15% success rate of getting on base, right, via a hit compared to almost 25%. You're losing a batter, right, every 5 batters in that sense of where you were before. Imagine one more out, how much pressure that can feel. And so that really kind of illuminates, the struggles overall. The pitching was still, incredible. And you got to give a lot of credit, Ella Koval-Martyr, right? CC Bell, right? And that whole staff, they did a really good job of being able to hold their ground because they really never dipped. And through the month of March in those tough games, especially they were red hot. We were giving up maybe 2 runs a game. And that goes a long way. And you can see that, right? 186 ERA in games they won this year. If you're holding teams under 2 runs, you're going to win games, especially at the college level when you have that much talent on the field. But I think the number one consistent thing, right, teased it earlier on in the episode, top 10 in fielding, 974, I believe we finished at, and that includes a couple errors in that regional game, right? If we would take those out, we're talking 980 potentially, or even up to the 977, 978, which would have knocked us up towards that top 5 spot. So just a couple errors, right? But I think overall, the defense, and that's obviously what Coach Schumann, looks a lot. I mean, the outfield especially, looking at the infield, and a lot of these recruits, it's almost more defense first. You got that locked down. And so obviously for the third time as the broken record, right? If you get the bats, you get them consistently hitting the softball. I mean, this team can be very, very special because of those fundamentals that they've built the first couple of years.
For sure. And I think it's important for this team specifically to hit the ball as well because they're so good on the base paths.
Yes.
A single for a lot of our players ends up turning into basically a double because they're so good on the base paths. They're aggressive. We're excellent at swiping bags and moving up, getting runners into scoring position, which is so important because when you have a heart of the lineup like we do with Alexis Kozlowski, Emma Gillard when she's hot, Emily Killian, those are players that can pump the ball far enough out into the outfield where a base hit scores a run, right? So, you're talking about players at the top of the lineup like Abby Meyer, Jaden Joseph, Ella McDonald for a lot of last season when she was playing up at the top of the lineup. Just getting on base was so important for this team because those players can stretch a single into a double. And if they don't, then a stolen base is certainly within their range of outcomes for essentially every time. The success rate on stolen bases is ridiculous, but I think that's one of the more important things for this squad is being fundamentally sound and being okay with base hits, understanding that the stolen base is very much in play.
Absolutely. With that speed, it has to be capitalized. And looking at some of the individual standouts, obviously the leader of this team, you mentioned just her name just a moment ago, Brody, and Alexis Kozlowski at the heart of that lineup. All-region nominee, right, for the Coaches Association. I mean, all GLIAC first team. She has shown, right, especially from her breakout freshman year, that she has the power to have extra base hit potential on every pitch. And I think that's something that pitchers obviously recognize. And especially with the heart of that order, you mentioned Emma Gillard. What a power breakout season that we saw from her. I mean, going yard a couple of times. She really had a great season. That brings a lot of promise. Even making the move from infield to outfield, manning center field. She did an incredible job. And especially when you have the leadership, right, especially left field, Maddie Gekas, and you also see Brooklyn Verbeek there at third base. I mean, with all of that, Jaden Joseph there at second. I mean, fielding consistency was never an issue with this team, right? They were always rock solid. They always had great routes. They always had great job being able to stay down on the ball, make a play, and some of the more underrated plays that nobody thinks about, right? Being able to just knock the ball down instead of getting it into the gap, right? Where you're saving a double into a single. Those little things do matter at the end of the day where one run could be the difference. And you look at the schedule, how many one-run games were there? There was a lot of them. So I think especially that notable, and we'll obviously highlight some numbers here when we get into the breakouts. And but I think especially, I love your perspective on this too, Tatum, is when you have that leadership on, especially in those important positions. If you're a young player, you're looking at Bailey McAllister, had a great season, right, as a freshman that had to step in. You're looking especially at the outfield, right, a lot of the interchangeables there, as far as who was in, who was out. You have a lot of that leadership. It really just makes the gameplay feel more comfortable, more natural, and especially when you have that belief in the philosophy of the game, right? Because this team is very aggressive on the base paths, and they are very aggressive in just overall strategy. I mean, it just makes the game feel that much easier to you, and that makes a whole lot of a difference.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's not even just the older girls in the team that are being leaders. Sometimes it's some of the younger ones. I mean, you mentioned Bailey McAllister, like she had to step up as a freshman, and I could see her just like bringing good energy out there. I think when there's good leadership from all different grades, experience levels, whatever, everyone feels more comfortable. They're working all together, and you can totally see it just by watching them.
Yeah, it's certainly apparent indeed. All right, it's about that time now. We don't have a schedule to break down yet for this team, but going to be very exciting indeed to see what Coach Schumann has up his sleeve for where they're going and who they're playing next year. But of course, in tradition of summer collaboration series, we got to pick our breakout candidates. I got to be honest, guys, I'm torn on two people, so I'm going to go last to see if one of my players, maybe both are picked. I'm not even sure, but Brody, I know that you've really got your heart set on one player here for this next year.
Yeah, I'm going to take Brianna Blair. I think she showed enough as a freshman in 29 games to where she should have a very big Bulldog career. She batted .256, which is great for a freshman. It's really a solid season for any level of a player, but for her coming in, more of a platoon type of player in her first season, defense focus, to come in and bat .256 the way that she did, I think she had a very good year. And, it's fine tuning some things. And when you have a young player, if all your only concern is fine tuning some things, I think there's a very bright future. And 18 should be one of those players in the outfield for the Bulldogs in the coming years where there's a lot of promise. That's been something Coach Schumann has tried to solidify is the outfield play. We saw Brianna Blair get the start against Findlay in the playoff game and play admirably in that game against the Oilers. I think that she should become a player next year that's an everyday type of player. If not every day, then pretty close to it. And hopefully throughout her Bulldog career, she can end up becoming potentially an MVP candidate for this team.
Love it. All right. Tatum, who do you have?
I don't even know if this is fair, but I really just want to say Abby Meyer because I feel like she is a very solid player and she holds her own very well, but I don't know if she's necessarily someone who's always been the standout player. And I think that next season she could be that player.
I like it.
Yeah.
One that everybody knows, but when you look at numbers and all those things, it doesn't pop off the paper. It does a lot for
She's like the steady Eddie, of the team. And I think she can be someone that steps up.
Okay. Steady Eddie. That might be your new nickname. We're just going to call her Steady Eddie from now on.
That's her nickname now.
You can get her t-shirts, merch store, FerrisStateBulldogs.com.
We got to announce her when she comes up to bat next year as Steady. See what her reaction is.
Wrong person.
I will never forget when she had the Little Einsteins theme song as her walk-up last year.
No way.
If you missed it, it was very much so like, funny. Oh, this is fun. All right. Now, with mine, I think especially this player has proven that she can be a breakout candidate. I think the interesting thought is just the simple PT, right? How much playing time she will get. Because I think what she did, especially filling this role this year, has really granted her consideration, I think, especially from the coaching staff, of finding a spot, right? Where can we play her? And that is Bailey McAllister. And I think especially from what we saw, right? Obviously played 46 games this year. Jaden Marlette could easily have been a pick for all three of us. And I think especially she should be one to watch because she was, the starting shortstop this year.
Yeah. 395 average, by the way.
Elite levels. She just got injured. So I think from my perspective, right, kind of debating between those two, I think that position is certainly going to be one to watch. But I think especially, right, Brooklyn Verbeek leaving third base a hot corner. That's been a problem that has not been discussed right until this year because she has been that solid rock at third base all your career long. But I think maybe, you could consider, right, how maybe those two right at the shortstop position, one goes to third, right? Maybe there's a recruit in mind, but I think if Bailey has that playing time, I mean, we saw what she can do with it from this last year, right? In those 46 games, I mean, 349 on base, 333 slugging. She gets on base, and especially the regional tournament, Brody, where we were there, she was one of the players, especially in those big moments that got them that base hit, right? In game one against Saginaw Valley State. She was the one late in that sixth inning that got on base, right? Provided
Broke up the no-hitter.
Broke up the no-hitter, exactly. So she found a way to make an impact, and I think especially with the glove, she showed a lot of great things, and I think she is one that certainly can have a fantastic season next year. It'll just be, right, what spot is there for her and how much of that everyday work is available. Because it's a good problem to have a lot of those players. But I think if Bailey finds the time, she's going to make it happen because she already did it this year. Yeah,
she showed what you needed to show in your freshman season when you're asking somebody to step up, right? She was expected to play a different sort of role until Jaden got hurt because unfortunately injuries are a part of every sport.
True.
And Jaden is going to be an everyday player. She's absolutely amazing.
She's talented.
She's going to be very, very good. But Bailey proved that she needs to be on the field every single game. That's in my opinion. I'm sure, I don't know exactly how Coach Schumann feels, but I'm hoping that he feels the same way. Bailey showed that she needs to be out there every single day. And if it's next to Jaden on the left side of the infield, then that's great. If it's somewhere else, then I think that's okay too. But she proved that she needs to be out there.
Absolutely. And not to mention 10 stolen bases last year.
Yeah, she does it all.
Number 5 on the team overall. And I think that definitely goes to show that there's going to be probably a spot for, there's a lot of names to pick from, right? There's going to be pitchers that come in as recruits that we're not even talking about. There's going to be a lot of opportunity out there. So those are obviously just the 3, but I think it's very, very fair to expect this team to have high expectations after the year that they had this year.
They absolutely should. And it's just the consistency. You talk about breakout candidates and you like to pick some of the younger players and players that have maybe, not quite gotten to where they can be, like Abby did with Tatum's pick. And Emma Gillard is another name where, boy, if she could just become a consistent hitter every single time she's on the field. I mean, you're talking about an all-GLIAC player easily in Gillard. So I think there's so much potential for this team. It's just, can they become that consistent force? And essentially, if they can, I think they could have a Saginaw type of year. I really do. They could be the best team in the Midwest region.
Whoa, I love it. I love the confidence. I mean, Tatum, you guys seen it. When you have that buildup in confidence for a team, I mean, yeah,
and it's a years in the making type of thing. So next season, I think they could totally be very top of conference. They can be in the NCAA tournament again. It's something that is just built over the years. So as long as they're continuing to make progress and improve, there's no reason they can't be up there.
No reason indeed. Well, guys, it's episode 1 in the books. Talking some softball.
Just like that.
Just like
Did
that.
it.
Wow.
We're off and running. And we'll be on episode 13 in no time. Or whatever, 12 or whatever number
It
it'll
goes
be.
by way too fast.
It goes by so fast.
Those that have been in Big Rapids in the summertime, you know exactly what we're talking about. Going to be buying very fast. I mean, we might be talking, we're going to be talking football next week, probably.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, it's going to feel like it at least. We won't be talking about football officially next week, but it's going to feel like next week. It's like, oh, yep, summer's gone. We're back.
Football
Again.
camp is here, essentially.
Yeah.
Football camp will be here very, very soon, as well as all the other sports in our camps. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Big thanks to Days Digital. Thanks, guys, for joining us here. I guess we'll see you next week.
Yep, see ya.
Sounds good.
Be sure to subscribe on News Radio WBRN, as well as find us on any podcast platform. We'll be back next week here on Behind the Bulldogs. Take care, everybody.